Thank you very much, and welcome to a very brief interaction covering issues in the ESDM space, especially with regard to manufacturing and the startup ecosystem. What are the kinds of challenges that we have? What are the kinds of opportunities that we have in the ESDM space? Now, what I'll do is I'll give a very brief introduction on where we are today with regard to the ESDM space, and I'll take you through a very brief, PowerPoint presentation, and I would like to make it as interactive as possible. I'll try to finish it in about 20 to 25 minutes time so that we have a good quality time for question and answer session. You know, why we are talking about manufacturing and the startup ecosystem is primarily because the import of electronic goods, as we all know, is going to overtake import of oil, which is a very, very disturbing trend, which none of us want to see. That's in the first instance. Secondly, if we continue with the same cumulative rate of growth of import of electronic goods, I think we are going to land up in a situation where, in addition to the trade balance and the balance of payments position that we are currently having, it's going to be a totally unsustainable economic scenario. So it's all the more important that we focus on manufacturing in the electronics system design and manufacturing space in the ESDM sector, number one. And number two, which is equally important, how do we in the ESDM space? These are the two issues, brief introduction on what ISA is today. We are trade and a business body of 260 plus member companies. We have a whole lot of members with us, covering from very small units going up to the MSME, going up to MNCs, and going up to large Indian players too. We are also the knowledge partners to the DAITI, Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. We are also helping a lot of states, currently in fact more than 6 states, where we are helping the states in drafting policies covering electronics systems, design, hardware, and so on. We are also helping them in trying to have international alliances, both bilateral and multilateral, with different agencies, trade and business bodies in the ESDM space, especially in countries like Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Israel, and so on. So 260 plus member companies covering the entire spectrum, starting from small to MNCs and being knowledge partners. This is a very critical industry, as I mentioned. The kind of revenue that we are looking at in the next 10 years' time will be close to about 400 billion. We are hovering around 100 billion today, but we expect the market to increase to close to about 400 billion in the next 10 years' time. ESDM imports, as I mentioned, is likely to import of ESDM, import of electronic goods in particular, is going to overtake oil imports by 2017. We were initially expecting it to overtake by 2020, but with the way the price of oil is coming down, it is now $30 per barrel from a high of 140 plus in 2008. We expect the import bill of electronics to overtake oil imports as early as 2017, which is just about a year and a half from now. Equally important, ESDM sector today contributes to less than 2% of India's GDP, compared to 10% plus in mainland China, and a much higher percentage in some of the other countries in the Asia-Pac region. Purely from national security, strategic and economic interests, it's very important that we focus and refocus on defense, on telecom, and on aerospace sectors in the country. In terms of its potential to create jobs, according to the estimates which have been prepared by some of the well-known agencies, both domestic agencies and international consultancies working in India, it has a potential to create close to about 28 million jobs if we capitalize on the $400 billion market that we see 10 years down the line. Now, we have all the requisites to become the next manufacturing hub. Domestic demand, the way it's growing, as I said, with a CGP of close to about 20%, very large domestic market, and equally large talent pool in the semiconductor design and embedded software space, cost competitiveness of operations. This is something which we have been, harping at for quite some time now. Primarily because we are not focusing only on cost arbitrage, because cost arbitrage is not going to be a very sustainable solutions in the long run. But cost arbitrage taken along with talent and quality related aspects, I think we have the competitive edge. Just to give you one example, the Nokia operations in Sriperumbudur, which had a back-end support of Foxconn. In fact, I had an occasion to meet up with a lot of officials in Nokia when the plant was in operation. We were told that though Nokia operates a number of plants globally, their Sriperumbudur plant was the most cost-effective and in terms of efficiency and productivity, the most productive and efficient plant which they run all over the world. That speaks volumes on the fact that given the kind of ecosystem that we have, we can be globally competitive. We have a very strong design and R&D capability, both in hardware and software, and the history of IP protection that we have, and the kind of interest that we see among our member companies going for IP protection gives a lot of comfort to multinational players in this space. A lot of opportunities in the manufacturing space, especially for the startups, primarily because we now have a new policy in position for startups. We have a lot of common facilities in position in many parts of the country, especially in Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, in areas like Noida, Gurgaon, which gives access to some common facilities which they had to go to either mainland China or some other countries in Asia-Pac region for getting some of these common facilities, be it testing, be it characterization, be it testing both with regard to market and with regard to quality. They had to approach any of these markets in Asia-Pac region, but today we have many of these facilities available within the country. Easy access for startups with regard to approvals, with regard to access to capital also. We have a number of incubation centers, clusters all over the country. In fact, DAITY has already approved more than 14 electronic manufacturing clusters throughout the country, and many more are in the pipeline as of now. Initiatives that help India scale up in manufacturing and propel the startups, the point which I've already covered, we have a pretty good ecosystem as of now. The modified special incentive package scheme, which was recently amended and given a new lease of life between 26th of July 2015, extended by another 5 years, incorporating 15 more items. A very good demand, a very good R&D ecosystem, and in terms of HR aspects, we have the electronics sector skill council in India, supplemented by the PhD scheme, which is a very, very important scheme because this is a very knowledge-intensive sector, and we do require high-end manpower with state-of-the-art talent, matching global skill sets. The program to promote 2,500 PhDs. We have set up a center of excellence in Bangalore, and DAITY proposes to set up similar centers of excellence, one each in North, East, and West. The South, which has been set up in Bangalore, has already rolled out the first tranche of training of teachers with very good results. We are looking at scaling up these operations in a very big way in the weeks and months to come. Overall funding, the top Indian companies or startups, we have a very good record. Flipkart, Snapdeal, Ola, InMobi, Paytm, Quicker, Zomato, MobiKwik, UseHug, Housing, BookMyShow. All these have received very good funding, both from domestic and overseas sources. Milestones that we have achieved in supporting startups. This is again a snapshot of what we have done, but we have, this is, as I said, only a snapshot, but we have done much more than this. Sensic has raised close to about $900,000 from Carson Wind, it's a Karnataka semiconductor venture capital fund. Design labs the state and outside the state. Srishti's efforts towards the goal of taking common man to Zen has also got very good traction. Zen and Next have received funding. Similarly, we perhaps are trying to see if we can have good venture capital fund to support semicon and the electronic space. In addition to Carson Wind, which I mentioned a short while ago, we have a 100 crore dedicated fund for electronics and semiconductors through Kitwell, Karnataka IT Venture Capital Fund, and similar initiatives are being planned in Pune and Hyderabad too. And out of these 100 crore venture capital fund for electronics and semiconductor space, we have over 4 to 5 applications which have already been here, and we have another 20 applications in the semicon and electronic space. Yeah, support by ISA, both the government of India and state government. As I said, we help a number of state governments in policy formulation, in drafting policies. We have done that for government of Goa. We have done that for Delhi. We are now working with a number of other states, be it Pune, be it Pune in Maharashtra, be it Jharkhand, be it Kerala. We are working with more than half a dozen states as of now in drafting policies which they require in the ESDM space. We have currently about 13 MOUs with different entities, both national and international. MOUs are not paper MOUs. In fact, we had close to about 35 plus MOUs. We have now reduced it to just about 13 or 14. We are working with NASCOM in the IoT space. We are working with KBITS in skilling, Karnataka biotechnology, IT services for promoting skilling. We have an MOU with Skill Academy. This is on skilling. We have an MOU with TAI. This is basically in the IoT space. We have an MOU with Government of Uttar Pradesh to encourage ESDM industry and the related ecosystem. We have an MOU with Singapore Semiconductor Industry Association to establish and develop trade and technical cooperation. We have an MOU with RELSI to promote, again, skilling in the VLSI design space. We have an MOU with Taiwan Electrical and Electronics Manufacturing Association to promote business partnerships and business relationships between Indian and Taiwanese companies, so on and so forth. But these MOUs, again, I must repeat, they are not paper MOUs. They are definite milestones to be covered within very strict timelines. These MOUs are doing pretty well, and they have been very successful in meeting the kind of benchmarks that we have set forth in these places. So much for a brief on what ISA is into, what the activities of ISA are. We have three very major national events. In fact, I should say global events. We have something called Deftronics. We are into the third year of implementation. Every alternate year, the event is in Bangalore and Delhi. The last event was in Delhi in 2015. 2016, it will be in Bangalore. We are also contemplating hosting the event in Hyderabad in 2017. We are focusing on electronics primarily because when we talk of Make in India, defense and aerospace are very, very big sectors in terms of volume. If only we can try to capitalize on, domestic production in defense and aerospace verticals, it will create lots of manufacturing activity, lots of manufacturing jobs in the defense and aerospace. The market is at 7,000 crores. If you look at the overall budget of defense, last year it was 2,46,000 crores. Electronics alone accounts for about 70,000 crores, and most of it is imported. So we see a lot of traction in defense and aerospace sectors for both job creation and manufacturing. We have another event called IoT Next. We had the first global IoT event last year that was on 9th and 10th of November 2015. It was the first global event in the IoT space. We had close to about 25 global speakers. We again see IoT as a very major game changer of sorts in the ESDM space. With close to about 50 billion devices expected to be connected by 2020 or 2022, we see a very big market for our member companies and players in the ESDM space in the IoT related verticals. And the third important event, which is our flagship event called the Vision Summit. We had the 11th Vision Summit in 2016. The 12th one is planned for in 2017 on 7th and 8th of February 2017. So these are the three big events which ISA hosts on an annual basis. But in addition, we have a number of smaller events. We host a number of events for startups, tying up with the industry entrepreneurs. We normally have about 5 to 6 events every year covering different verticals. We had one event last June which covered agriculture and health sectors. Then we had one event covering telecom, again focusing on IoT. We had one event on IoT covering big data. So we cover a number of smaller events in IoT space. All these events are not necessarily in Bangalore. Some of them in Pune, some of them in Hyderabad, or some of them in the New Delhi region, National Capital Region, depending on the kind of response we get from member companies. So this is just a snapshot of what ISA does, where we are today, and where we will be in the years to come. As I said, unless we do something very serious about it, oil imports lagging behind import of electronic goods is something that we don't want to see, but it definitely happen unless we focus on manufacturing and we focus on triggering startups in a very big way in the ESDM space. So 3 national events, a lot of smaller events to promote startups. We currently are working with close to about 25 to 26 startups in a very big way in the IoT space, and hopefully even if 2 to 3% of them, or even if 5% of them become global players, I think we would have achieved the kind of mandate that we have set for ourselves. So I've taken close to about 25 minutes of talking. Would welcome questions and interaction in a very big way.
Thank you for the talk, sir. The questions are already shared with you. The question will take the answer. Take the question.
So I would welcome questions from those who are participating in the webinar. will be too happy to answer, as also take suggestions from you on the way forward in the ESDM space.
The questions are already shared with you.
I'm not able to see the questions. I don't see the questions, Kishan. Yeah, we have the first question from Ajay. Ajay's question is that why can't Akash tablets be a game changer of sorts? I fully concur with you. It should have been mandatory that it must have a mandatory local or a domestic component of to begin with 50% in year 1, 75% in year 2, and maybe 100% in year 3, so that we develop the local ecosystem in a very big way. We develop the supply chain in a very big way, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But it's something very much doable. So when we talk of manufacturing, we must insist on a certain minimum local component. Otherwise, Make in India will not be able to make the kind of trend that we are looking at in the months and years to come. So Ajay, question well taken. We need to insist on local components in a big way. In fact, that's what we are insisting. In fact, we are trying to evangelize in the defense and aerospace sectors. When we are importing large components subsystems and systems from outside the country, if only they can insist on the central public sector undertakings which are in the defense and aerospace sectors, certain minimum local component to be insisted in a phased manner, so that in year 4, year 5, we are in a position to produce the entire system locally. That's very much. Why only Akash? There are very many other schemes. There are schemes where states are giving free laptops. There are schemes where states are giving a lot of electronic goods free of cost. And the scale is huge, covering literally the entire state's population. If in each one of these cases, if we can insist that the supplier shall ensure a minimum local component to be increased in a phased way to year 4, year 5, I think it will be an eminently doable proposition for us to make in India and take Make in India to the logical end. We have a question from Ravichandar Yoganathan. The canvas of electronic manufacturing is very huge. We should focus on certain areas like telecom equipment, defense electronics, space, and other high-end areas. Is this a focus area? Absolutely, Ravichandra. I did mention the kind of budget that we have. Defense and aerospace alone are enough to make a very big dent in the local manufacturing. 70,000 crores, according to the estimate that we have with us, and the kind of heat matrix that we have developed with regard to the local suppliers, suppliers in the country, covering the SMEs and also the large players. It's a huge market, which we can explore and exploit in the defense and aerospace markets. So again, this is something we need to focus. In fact, we had a meeting with the Department of the Ministry of Defense, Department of Defense Production, that was in sometime in December last. We have been asked to prepare draft defense electronics policy. We have, and we are doing it with help from NASSCOM. In fact, it will be our ISEA NASSCOM defense electronics report. What we are doing is that we have requested Roland Berger, who are the McKinseys in the defense and aerospace sectors globally, to prepare the draft. The draft is ready. We have now shared it with MOD, NASSCOM, and ISA board to give their inputs on the first cut, which is basically a beta version. Once we give our inputs into it and take inputs from Department of Defense Production, we would be launching the policy, or in fact, Ministry of Defense will be launching the policy. They're at a stage where the version is ready. We are just waiting for input from all the stakeholders. We also look at defense and aerospace sectors as a very big chunk to make a significant impact in the Make in India mission. Now, we have a question from Abhishek. Will all the 28 million jobs need higher order of skills? What about blue-collar jobs? What about the administrative reforms that you think must happen? Will all 28 million jobs need higher order of skills? What about blue-collar jobs? What are the administrative reforms that you think must happen? Now, these 28 million jobs are not the high-end jobs that I'm talking about. They are definitely jobs at the shop floor level. We need to ensure that the Electronic Sector Skill Council and the Telecom Sector Skill Council, who are into this space in a very big way. There's also the Center of Excellence which has been set up in Bangalore by the Electronic Sector Skill Council of India, which is meant for the high-end skilling, and the Electronic Sector Skill Councils, out of 29 sector skill councils that NSDC has identified, 2 of them directly relate to ISEA, which is the Telecom Sector Skill Council and the Electronic Sector Skill Council of India. In fact, we are in the board of ESSAI in Delhi. They are going to play a very important role, especially in the blue-collar jobs. And lots of things are happening where companies are trying to adopt the ITIs and polytechnics to fine-tune the skills to meet the industry needs. Lots and lots of these ideas have already been adopted by industries in very many states. There are very many examples where these are happening. So these 28 million jobs are not restricted to a particular vertical of high-end skills. They are spread horizontally over the entire spectrum. I hope that answers Abhishek's question. We have one more question from Tenmoi. What is the component level manufacturing boom? When is the component level manufacturing boom expected in India? You see, we normally talk of the entire ecosystem. This will not happen overnight, but the coming of Foxconn, the coming of other big players from Taiwan, mainland China, Japan, South Korea will definitely enrich the supply chain ecosystem. In the automobile sector, in early 90s and middle 90s, and today we are one of the largest exporters of wheels in the world globally. So a similar thing is definitely going to happen in the ESDM space with the coming of these big players. Because these big players, when they come to India, they not only come with technology transfer, but they come with the entire ecosystem. But this is not going to happen over time. We need a bang of about 4 to 5 years time, and we see that happening already in the cell phone space, both in feature phone and smartphone category, but you can expect a similar trend happening in the entire ESDM space. Wait for the next 4 to 5 years time, you will see the component level ecosystem meeting global standards happening in a very big way. Defense sector being, this is from Balvinder Singh, defense sector being very sensitive, and since we start from ground zero, what is the scope for startups? Balvinder, we are not starting from ground zero. In fact, we have a pretty good supply chain. Now, if you look at what ISRO has done, the Mars probe, the cost being just about, 10% of what the cost of NASA was in launching a similar probe. You must have seen 4 satellites of another country was launched by ISRO in India. We have requests from 3 or 4 other countries to launch their satellites from India. So if ISRO has been able to develop a pretty good supply chain, with SMEs playing a very important role, I'm sure we will have a similar supply chain developing in the defense and aerospace sectors too. We have a good supply chain, but not enough to ensure that we make a significant impact in the Make in India mission. But as I said, lots of things are happening. The only thing we need to do is we need to insist that the equipments procured have a minimum domestic component of X% in year 1, X+1 in year 2, X+2 in year 3, and so on until we reach close to about 90% over a 5-year period of time. In fact, that will be one of the very major recommendations which will be a part of the defense electronics policy which we are coming up with. In fact, that policy is not being drafted within the four walls of any institution. We are taking input from practically every stakeholder, be it in the corporate sector, be it in the public sector. Harish Kumar, what will be the future of Bangalore in electronic manufacturing sector? Harish, you know it very well. There's a pretty good ecosystem, very mature ecosystem in the design space. Now the thing is, how do we migrate from design to manufacturing? In fact, if you look at the mission of ISA, it says innovation-led design and design-led manufacturing. That's our motto. Right now, we are very strong in the design space. How do we now migrate and navigate to the manufacturing sector? All the new policies which have now been put in position, the amendments to the MSETs, the Startup Action Plan, the Electronic Development Fund, the Scaling Up Fund announced by MSME, 10,000 crores each. There are today 3 10,000 crore tranche available for startups, for scaling up, and for the Electronic Development Fund. Now, all these are going to play a very, very major role in our migration and navigation from design to innovation and innovation to design and then subsequently to manufacturing. We have Satish Kariveda. How does the government reform promote India Electronics and Semiconductor Association? Very significantly, very, very significantly. In fact, if you look at the way states are vying with each other in trying to come out with, the best of policies in the electronics and semiconductor space. Just to give you one example, we had the state of Madhya Pradesh participating in the Vision Summit that was in 2015, and we had a request from a global player to set up an analog fab in India, costing about 1.2 to 1.3 billion US. They approached a number of states. They also went to the state of Madhya Pradesh. You will not believe it. Government of Madhya Pradesh, having obtained cabinet approval, came out with a new dispensation for an analog fab within 7 days' time. See, that is the kind of feverish pitch with which states are working today. Competition among states has heated up so much that every state is now having, you must have heard of, events that Vibrant Gujarat happened. Then there's some very big global summit happened in Chennai. We had a similar summit in Odisha some weeks ago. We have the happening Haryana on 7th of March. I mean, the kind of competition that states are now into in trying to attract investments, especially in the electronics and semiconductor space, it's something that the industry must welcome, wholeheartedly, primarily because, the states are coming out with very, very good packages. Government of Odisha is now very aggressive. Government of Goa is very aggressive. Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra. Now, all these states are competing very aggressively. Almost there's a rat race now in trying to attract investments globally and from within the country and local players in the ESM space. Now, Abhishek has asked one more question. What more needs to be done to ensure backward linkages with MSME? As I said, the coming of these global players is going to help us in a very big way in both forward and backward linkages. Backward linkages in terms of preparing a supply chain for supply of components, forward linkages for packaging, marketing, and so on. Backward linkages will happen sooner. Forward linkages may take some more time once the backward linkages are in position. But the kind of developments we see with the coming of some of the big global players, supply chain is already happening in a very big way. We are seeing that in Andhra Pradesh, we are seeing that in Telangana, we are seeing that in Maharashtra, and to a large extent, we also see similar developments happening in Karnataka. Tanmoy has got one more question. Is there any expectation in the upcoming union budget for electronic manufacturing sector? Yes, we have a long wish list, Tanimoi. In fact, what we are trying to focus is, you see, today it is possible for anyone to import a finished electronic good. Many electronic goods, I wouldn't say many electronic goods, finished goods with zero customs duty. But when it comes to import of components, we need to pay customs duty anywhere between 25% to about 40%, which makes domestic manufacturing at a disadvantage. Now, how do we take care of this disadvantage? How do we ensure that we compensate the local players by utilizing this disadvantage? See, MSIPs, which gives you capital subsidy of 20 to 25%, that itself is a great utilizer. Number one. But there are very many other state schemes. MSIPs is a dispensation of deity. But once deity clears application, states vie with each other in trying to give concessions. There are states, though I wouldn't like to name them specifically, who are giving land at literally free of cost, with a lease amount of 10 rupees per annum per acre. There are states who are exempting or giving them postponement of payment of VAT. There are states who are giving registration of land at zero registration cost, no stamp duty, no registration rates as such. So lots and lots of states vying with each other and trying to roll out incentives to the states in addition to the concessions given by center. So we see a lot of things happening, especially in the startup space. The 10,000 startup initiative of MASCOM, which is again picking up in a very big way, and the startup trigger given by ISEA in a very big way in the IoT space, the startup trigger given by states like Telangana and Maharashtra. All these things are going to play a very major role, and all these have focus of small and medium players. So lots of things are happening in the startup space in trying to give a major boost to these SMEs. Now today we have one more question from Aradhya. Today semiconductor industry thrives on volume in millions and billions of units. Such volume can only come from a global reach. How this is being visualized in developing manufacturing facilities in India, keeping export market as well in view? Good question, Aradhya. Just try to juxtapose your question with what happened in the automobile industry. We were nowhere in the automobile sector until the early 80s and late 80s. Maruti Suzuki entered the fray with their first vehicle released in 1982. That was during Asia. Now look at what has happened today. We produce close to about 1/3 the number of cars that mainland China produces. And look at the beauty of it. We export more cars to the rest of the world than mainland China. How has this happened? It's something that we need to probe into. Now, a similar thing is going to happen in the electronics and semiconductor space also. See, unless we look at a global market, and as you rightly mentioned, electronics and semiconductor is a game with a global scale. We can't be focusing on Indian market and then say, we are going to succeed. Because, after having signed the IDA-1 agreement in 2002, which permits, customs duty-free import of very many finished goods, if we are to be competitive in the medium scale and in the long term, medium term and long term, we have to be globally competitive. And if we have to be globally competitive, we need to think of manufacturing on a global scale. If we can produce, we are thinking of producing close to about 300 cell phones per annum, not only for the Indian market, but for the global market. And as I said, we can produce it at a certain cost, which will be globally competitive. Distinct experience of some of the global players in India, with the kind of talent we have, with the kind of productivity levels that we have on the shop floor, we should be in a position to produce globally competitive, of course. But unless we think of producing goods on a global scale, there is no way we can sustain the kind of manufacturing that we are thinking of in India. Today, manufacturing contributes just about 12.9% of GDP. And according to the National Manufacturing Policy, we intend taking it up to about 25% by 2022. If this were to happen, it can happen only if we look at a global market in the electronics and semiconductor space. Harish Khanna, to what extent our electronic component industry ready in case there is a mandate to have minimum local content in the telecom, defense, aerospace, and even in the computer hardware besides audio and video industry? Harish, we are very ready. The only thing is, are we prepared to give them an opportunity? Today, see, at least about a year to about 12 to 16 months ago, I saw a lot of companies shutting down because they had the manufacturing capability and capacity and potential, but they were having no market, primarily because there were no local manufacturers. They could sell their components only to about a handful of producers. There was no local manufacturing on a scale that we are seeing today for them to sustain the minimum threshold level of production. In the electronic component, as far as the ESDM is concerned, I am sure with the kind of policy measures which have been put in position by the states and the center, if only we encash on them, we capitalize on them, it is eminently possible for us to make use of these policies to be a globally sustainable component suppliers. Especially in sectors like aerospace, defense and telecom, we have a pretty good supply chain, both backward and forward, which can support the manufacturing sector in a very big way. We have one more question from Satish Kariveda. Do you have talks with worldwide organizations to build their manufacturing plants in India to make India as a global hub for manufacturing? Or can we build partner manufacturers in India who can manufacture and ship products across the globe? For example, GM Motors procures its all raw materials from India. Likewise, many more. If we connect our startups to be partners for global manufacturing companies. Yes, Satish, we are in talks with very many global players. I also mentioned to you that ISEA has taken the first steps in this regard among all business and trade bodies in India. We are looking at Japan, Taiwan, South Korea in a very big way to make a significant impact in the manufacturing space insofar as electronics and semiconductors is concerned. We are the first business and trade body in the country to decide on opening an office in Taipei, in Taiwan. We should be doing that shortly. We are also opening a front office in Fukuoka, in Japan. That should happen hopefully by the third quarter of this year. And immediately after that, we are looking at opening an office in Seoul, in South Korea. Thereafter, we are also looking at opening a front office in Israel, because as you know, Israel is a very important player in the defense vertical. So the first front office will be in Taiwan, the second one in Japan, the third one in South Korea, and Seoul in South Korea, and finally in Israel. We have an agreement with Taiwan Electrical and Electronics Manufacturers Association. We have an agreement with Taipei Computer Association, TCA. In fact, TCA has already opened an office, India office in Bangalore. And we want to reciprocate similar gestures by opening offices elsewhere. We have an agreement with SSIA, Singapore Semiconductor Industries Association. We have an agreement with an industry body in Israel, and we are looking at a similar agreement with South Korea also. So we are in constant touch with all these industry bodies in these 4 or 5 important countries with whom we want to associate in a big way, partner in a big way. There is a proposal to set up a Taiwanese industrial park built by a Taiwanese developer, which will host Taiwanese companies. Either they'll be coming on their own to set up their units, or they'll be partnering with Indian companies to set up their base in India. This is going to happen shortly. We are going to make announcements in this regard. Similar initiatives have been planned in Karnataka and Gujarat as of now, but other associations are also looking at a number of options of setting up similar industrial parks dedicated to industries coming from that particular country. In fact, there is a proposal for a Japanese city where they will house all the Japanese companies, either individually or through partnership with local companies. So we are talking to a lot of global industry bodies, trade bodies to enhance cooperation and partnership with Indian companies. See, these partnerships is going to help us in a very big way in enriching the local ecosystem to be of global standards. So that is why the focus, at least of ISEA in this regard, is in a very big way to promote these kinds of partnerships. Now, Vishal has asked a question. Please tell me about the best startup supporters from India electronic sector. I really am not in a position to give you an exact answer because your question will require more fine-tuning. If you say best startup supporters from India in the electronic sector, we literally handhold them. This handholding is a 360-degree handholding. It is not restricted to only giving them mentor support, incubation support, go-to-market support, or support in terms of common facilities. We are looking at a 360-degree intervention. I don't know if you are aware of the initiative. Sorry,
sir, you can take it as a last question.
Come again. Can you come again?
Sir, you can take this as a last question.
Okay. Vishal, if you are aware, we have set up an Electropreneur Park in Delhi. It's an initiative funded 100% by Delhi with Delhi University, SDPI, Cyber Media Group, the CMR Group, and ISA as joint partners. The mandate given to ISA is to have 50 startups in 5 years to be incubated in the Electropreneur Park, which has been set up in Delhi University in Venkateshwara College near Dholakua, if you are aware of Delhi. The first batch of 10 startups, they are already in position. We are going to start road shows for the second group of 10 startups. So it's a 5-year project. Each year we promote 10 startups. So in 5 years, we are supposed to promote 50 startups in the SDM space. Out of these 50 startups, even if 5 become global players, I think we would have achieved our objective. And this intervention, as I said, is a 360-degree intervention where we help them in every possible way. And our intervention of starting an Electropreneur Park under the guidance of DAITY has been very well taken. Many states have come forward to start their own Electropreneur Park. There are initiatives by private players. A lot of mentors want to come together and desire to start Electropreneur Park in the private sector. So this has become a very major trigger for similar initiatives elsewhere also. And you take it from me, the kind of response we have got from road shows, which we conduct in close to about 10 cities in India after giving a lot of publicity. In each city, we get about, we get hundreds of applications. And, we try to sift among these applications, select a handful of them. They in turn undergo a second level of interview and a third level of interview. And finally, we come to a figure of 10 entrepreneurs. So a lot of rigor and a lot of scrutiny takes place. And the kind of interest that we get from the startups is amazing. So this Electropreneur Park is now gaining momentum in a big way. I'm only giving you one of the examples, but there are very many such initiatives happening in the startup space. Thank you very much, Vishal, for your question. But do have a look at our website on Electropreneur Park in Delhi. That will give you a host of other information. Thanks very much to all the viewers and registered our viewers. Thanks very much.